Hello, yes, I've had a haircut, and any comments may result in me having a meltdown. Just joking, say what you want. So, perhaps one of the most frustrating and most difficult things to understand about PDA is our tendency to take what appear to be breaks from extreme demand avoidance. A PDA child may bestir themselves and blend in at school, conform, sit through lessons without incident, play nicely with their fellow classmates during break time, and thus appear as though they are of the same ilk as their peers, minus a few superficial quirks here and there. At home, however, it is a totally different story. The PDA child is stubborn, antisocial, uncooperative, unpredictable, explosive, and potentially physically or verbally abusive. This phenomenon is known as masking. So, what's going on here? The PDA child has a very utilitarian approach to life and views every experience, action, or process as a means to something that is beneficial or useful to them long term. PDA children are meaning junkies and cannot for the life of them bring themselves to do anything that they deem meaningless. Therefore, it is up to the parent or caregiver of the child with PDA to convey the meaning, value, or importance of, say, a chore such as making the bed in a manner which is, of course, indirect. If the person is successful in their effort to convey the value of bed making, then the PDA child will do so without question. I use bed making as an example because on the surface it may seem like an arguably pointless chore. I know this is something I struggled with once upon a time myself, and upon realizing that the very action is symbolic of self-discipline, order, and self-respect, I have been enabled to assign sufficient meaning to bed making, which has rendered me able to do it without thinking, even though I myself embody the abstruse and bloody annoying phenomenon that is PDA. The means becomes not only pointless, but invisible to the PDA child upon their realizing that what they will get out of a chore or task holds little or no meaning to them at all. The child may mask at school because school could be an environment awash with meaning and opportunity. Academia is irrelevant here. The child may be academically inclined, but they may enjoy being at school for other reasons, such as being with friends or simply revelling in the respite from what is to them a torrid and demanding home life. Whatever the child's reasons, if there is something at school worth their time that they view as a source of mental or emotional nutrition, they will be able to put aside their adamantine shield of demand avoidance and allow in what is nutritious to them. I have often spoken about the absolute imperativeness of the PDA child finding their thing, that is to say, their raison d'être, or, in English, their reason for being. Once their thing has been discovered, it becomes an unswerving driving force in their life. Now, please don't misconstrue what I say about the child's finding their thing with the proposition that finding their thing will in some way heal their PDA. In some cases, it can mean quite the opposite, as finding their thing may fortify the demand avoidance, as everything else in comparison to their thing may seem even more worthless than it was already. Let's imagine that a PDA child discovers their thing is acting or performing. Attending school may not only be doable, but enjoyable. Perhaps they have a particular predilection for mimicking, in which case school is the absolute perfect environment for them, as the place is awash with people whom they can analyse and whom they can go on to mimic at home. Ultimately, where at school they enter their inhalation period, home becomes a time for exhalation. Therefore, anything at home that comes their way, i.e. parents or siblings even so much as speaking to them, automatically becomes demanding. Sometimes we are prepared to take in and utilise things of which we deem unimportant or barely important in pursuit of things which are, to us, of supreme value. Our trajectory towards the ripe and juicy mango may be littered with raisins that, although insubstantial, can sustain us before reaching our target of superior nutritional value. At this point, I find it incumbent to mention that the same principle applies to those who possess the ADHD brain. A PDA, or ADHD child, may have a geeky fascination with French poetry, say. The subject serves as a kind of academic vehicle in which they roam vast expanses of information. Even though the child is in pursuit of knowledge related to French poetry, they will encounter many other intellectual gems that they may have to absorb if it means reaching their destination. They may find that the vehicle is parked near to an event of particular political salience, such as the French Revolution. They have navigated to this point in history because they are in pursuit of French literature. But they can't imbibe mere words without tapping into the hearts and minds of the people immersed in the distemper that would ultimately transform the country's social and political climate, as that's exactly what the poems they seek will illustrate. Through their research, they will be able to learn what the fashion was like and how people interacted with one another, what the people ate at the time, and what the people did for fun. They'll learn about the architecture and perhaps the flora and fauna. A PDA or ADHD child may have many vehicles over their lifetime, but just because they happen to be engrossed in one particular subject at a time does not mean that their research is restrictive, because, as I explained earlier, their subject of choice serves as a vehicle with which they use to journey. During my time in the United States, I, on numerous occasions, drove or hitchhiked from coast to coast. California or New York or other coastal cities were my destinations, but the journey itself, as I cruised across the vast country rich in natural beauty and character, was anything but trivial or unmemorable. As usual, I seem to have digressed. So, let's bring it back to masking for a moment, although everything I'm saying is related. I mentioned earlier that on the surface, the PDA child at school may appear as though they are behaving just the same as any other child, but inside they may be flagging. Even though the demand avoidance has temporarily lifted so that the PDA child can carry out basic functions in pursuit of meaning, truth or success, their hypersensitivity lives on. Minor emotional injuries brought on by minor demands and other slights may build up throughout the day, and then at home, once the demand avoidance returns, the accumulated emotion may be vomited out. I'm speaking as though every PDA child masks and performs well at school while being an unrelenting destructive force at home, but it could be the other way around. I was an absolute nightmare at school, fairly consistently, and at one point, around the same time I started teaching myself the guitar, I was no trouble at all, as I'd just shut myself away in my room and practice. Of course, there were many times throughout my childhood, and admittedly in adulthood, where my behaviour proved unbearable to the people at home too. It all depends on what we identify as nutrition, and where the source of nutrition is located. To make things even more complex, school was a nutritional powerhouse for me at one point, as I got a lot out of disrupting and being the class clown. There can be a marked difference between what we want and what we know is important, and they don't always coexist. I wanted to be the class clown, so I could easily turn up to school and make a fool out of myself and feel nourished. But another person with PDA, who is at college studying towards a qualification, may not enjoy being at college, but college serves as the trajectory towards the qualification for which they hunger. So the means is born. Alas, the locus of nutrition is prone to moving about. Before I discerned the nutrition in being a class clown, I loathed school and would refuse to attend. And then, when the excitement of being a class clown begun to wane, I refused to attend school again. Very complicated, isn't it? Just see us as prowling for nutrition. The nutrition of meaning. I think that'll do for today. Thank you for watching, and Merry Christmas. Whatever that means.